Shalom, guys. Welcome to episode 26 of the Servants Podcast. You've missed us. I know you have, but not to worry. We are back.
Right.
It's been a lot going on. You know what I mean? And especially with Yoshi over here, Pastor Yoshi over here, has been a busy bee buzzing around, and maybe he'll give us a little bit of an update on his current situation. New setting, it appears to be
Incomplete, but
incomplete.
in process of getting
Yeah,
better.
we're missing the swords hanging.
Yeah, they are here to my right.
The drum set is set up. It's just off
The drum
screen.
set is here to my left. I can show you if you want.
Yeah, show
It's
show show the
there.
peeps. Oh man, and you got the toes out. Hey, bro, come on,
Yeah.
man. You know you get me. All right, let me. Anyways, let's change the subject because it's
Let's
about to
keep
get
it
weird
PG.
out here.
Let's
Yeah,
keep
let's
it
keep
PG.
Yoshi with the toes out. With those look like some anime sandals.
I have
Not
massive flip flops.
not to put the focus on your toes or anything weird, but like
Right.
it does look like some anime, something Naruto. Even though I never really watched it, would be wearing or like some anime character.
Yeah. I mean, I normally buy stuff to last forever if I can.
Yeah,
So I bought those gigantic big flip flops because they are like this thick, the
yeah,
rubber sole. Because I used to have the other ones, and they would break all the time. And these things are not cheap. So I just said, okay, if I'm gonna spend this amount of money in a pair of flip flops, I'm gonna buy one that's gonna last for my grandchildren to use.
yeah.
So
Pass down the flip flops, which is crazy because you're wearing like traditional flip flops, like that have the little thong, the toe
yeah.
thong.
hmm
You know, I haven't worn flip flops like that since I was like a kid. I'm more of a slide person.
I
You know,
hate
what I'm talking.
slides. I hate those slippers. I don't
That's
like them.
well, really, what happened is I turned into a Croc person, and I was a Croc hater. You know, I used to be in the hating Croc camp, and then I put a pair on, and I was like, I get it.
Right.
I get it. It was just one of those things that just instantly, like, there was no conversation need to be had. No one
hmm
had to convince. It's like with Yahusha. Like once it just the light switch hit, I was like, nah, I get it. And then like now that's the only thing I wear. And Vanessa gets mad at me because she wants me to look presentable.
My
But
wife too.
it's just why would it's comfortable, And I'm not going to like a red carpet event, so it's like, you know what I
Like
mean?
I know I'm way prettier now than I was before getting married. Way more handsome. Let's put it that way. My wife did a number on me, like
Mhm.
appearance wise. But man, I just like big shirts and comfortable baggy clothes. It's just easier and more comfortable to live like that.
Yeah,
So I tried my best to not get out the house, not to get dressed up all the time. I just
yeah.
try to just be like this all the time. This is my obesity shirt. It's like 5 sizes bigger than me.
But you're comfortable. You
Yeah,
know
I'm
what I mean?
comfortable.
That's what you know, it's not, hey, we're here for a good time, not a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
indeed.
might as well enjoy it. Life's hard enough. Why, like I never understood. I've traveled quite a bit in the sense of like, I've been on a lot of planes. Like I've gone to a lot of airports. I've gone to like, and by a lot, I don't mean like 50 Cent, traveling to like every state, every country in the world or something crazy. But like I've flown a fair bit in my life so far.
Right.
I never understood people that wear like a 3-piece suit to the airport. Like, bro, like you, especially like if the flight's like a couple hours, like, and you're doing something important, like, okay, I get it, sure. But like, dude, that first of all, unless you're flying like first class or you got money like that, like, bro, those seats are tiny. And I'm a big guy, so maybe it has something to do with it too. But it's like the seats are tiny, it's uncomfortable. The lady next to you, she's like half on you. The guy next to you's got his leg
Right.
on. Like I'm already uncomfortable. I'm pull up in my Crocs, some shorts, t-shirt. I'm chilling. You know what I mean? So I never understood that. But anyways, moral of the story. So anyways, guys, yeah, episode 26. We're here. We're back. Um, Yoshi, if you want to give us a little update, Yoshi, what you've been up to? You've had a lot of big changes the last couple of weeks, which is
Yeah.
partially why we didn't record, and then mainly me. I don't even remember why. One thing or another, we didn't record the last couple of weeks, or we did, and And one thing we recorded was just like I felt like it wasn't really worthy of posting.
Right.
And then Yoshi had chaos in a good way
Good
last
chaos.
week. Good chaos, and it was really exciting stuff. So yeah, Yoshi moved. So why don't you tell us a little about that, man?
Right. So, a few of you guys, I don't know if I don't know if you guys know that, but I was ordained a pastor, and I have the certificate here. I couldn't frame it yet, but I have it here.
Mm. Certificate of authenticity.
Yeah,
At
certificate
that,
of ordination on
love it.
the. I was ordained on this on November the 2nd, but the announcement to me was on October 31st. So after that, I spent the whole month of November looking for a house because I used to live. I don't know if I mentioned this before in the other episodes, but like I used to live in a very small apartment here in the city of Campina Grande because like me and my wife we got married and I used to live in the south, but there is way too expensive to start life when you just you are just beginning, like you just gotten married or you are a young couple that just had children, which is not our case yet. So we said, okay, let's go to Northeast also because of the congregation that I felt that Yahuah was doing something here that I couldn't lead my family away from the will of Yahuah that he was doing here. And the congregation started once we arrived. And I got here already, like, I didn't do an oath, but like, I already arrived here as one of the leaders of the group. And Shaliach said, he called a meeting and said to all of us, like, this is my final decision, and that's it. They are going to be the leaders. But we were not ordained in Kurashah, Evangelist Kurashah. We were not ordained. We were operating as elders, but we were not on paper and officially elders. So I kept on living in that apartment, and we were meeting in Kurashah's home. And we came here as me and my wife came here. I arrived here like already one of the leaders of the group, despite the fact that I didn't know what that meant back then. And 2 years after, almost 2 years after that, 2 years of being in the congregation, having the meetings and whatever, I was ordained a pastor because Kershaw was ordained an evangelist. So our offices were made official. So I thought to myself, how can I pastor people if I don't have a place for them to meet in? It doesn't make much sense to be a pastor without having a pasture for the sheep. So I started looking for a house, a bigger house, like very outside of my pay grade, very much more than I ever had in my life because it's supposed to hold the congregation, not only the people that are here, but also those that are supposed to come in the future, because that's the purpose. Like we know that Yahuwah works with the remnant. We know that he works with less people than we are normally accustomed to, because that's his way of his modus operandi. He works with the remnant, with a smaller group of people, but that doesn't mean that we cannot grow, inflate, and build a second group. So we're me and my wife, we were looking for a place where we could hold the people here and the people to come. So I moved, I think was 2 weeks ago. I think it was on November. No, it was on December no, it was on November the 30th. That's the day where we came here. So we moved into this house on November the 30th, 2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago. Gonna be 2 weeks on Sunday. And ever since we have been putting the house together, establishing what is going to be what. Like, this is my studio where I do the translations. I have the living room there where the congregation meets. There is the flat screen TV that we had in the apartment now, for the service of the congregation. And it's been hectic because this house is an older house, so the owner has been having us receive a lot of workers that are fixing the doors, fixing the electricity, and I'm not an early bird by no means. I don't like waking up early, so I'm being forced to wake up early because I work from home, so I don't see a reason for me to wake up early, and I never liked it before. So I've been waking up very early. This is why I have a tired face, just because I'm not accustomed to it. And I teach English, so some of my classes go way into the night, and I'm getting adjusted. And also the house is huge, it's gigantic, and we have a lot more stuff to do than we used to have in the apartment, which is a good problem to have because it means we have space. Also, cleaning, organizing things. We still have stuff boxed that we need to unbox and put in their rightful places. Trying to arrange the furniture in a way that the house doesn't feel so empty as I believe it is in my eyes at least. My walls are very echoey because I haven't finished the foam as I used to have in the older studio. I just have like these walls here, and we already had the first service here at the house. Close these windows. So we already had one service here at the house, and it was very nice. Hot, a little bit hot, but very nice because it was one of my goals. You know what I'm saying? Just to centralize things in my house if at all possible, and also to have a place that I could receive people because I couldn't before. I wanted to receive people for a visit, like you come a week and stay with us, have a service with us, and whatever. But
Yeah.
I never had the space for it. I could never do it, and now I can. And it's been a very smooth process. Just a few adaptations that need to happen here and there, but very smooth process, very nice process. I'm enjoying that thoroughly. It's something that I had in mind for a long time now, ever since we got to Campina, because I always had in my head that that apartment was a good first step,
Yeah.
but it was not something permanent because I was feeling like a crab in a tin can. It was too small, and it was hard for me like to look at the sky. The ceiling was very close, so I felt like claustrophobic a little bit. So big changes, that means a lot of work and a lot of messing up schedules. For instance, I forgot two things today that I had booked. One was to put the episode of the podcast to run, an older one because the new one didn't, we didn't record it yet. I missed one recording because I was tired and we just spoke about stuff. So yeah, but big changes, a lot of stuff happening at the same time. But I'm glad they are happening. Finally,
Mm.
something, some
Man,
some changes, in the future direction. Let's put it that way.
praise yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. It's really fun. I mean, like it's really. I mean, you're 28 already.
28, yeah,
Yeah, so we're both 28, and then like looking back, and I mean, especially for you, like the where, like we've probably mentioned this before, but it's like it's. I don't even think interesting is a word. It's just so fascinating to see how how you really see like the stages of your life. And I feel like as you get older, and yeah, I'm
yeah,
not like 80 years old, but like even as like a young man, seeing like you you ever have like those times? Like for me, it's like in the mornings when I drive to work. I'm just like I got like almost an hour drive at times, depending, and then it's just like dead silent. You know, not really. I don't listen to music often in the morning, or I'm not watching a podcast or something like that. I'm just sitting there in dead silence, and then it's just like it's one of those things where it's like you're driving somewhere and you get there and you're like, I don't even remember.
yeah,
Like you're just kind of like on autopilot, and you're just kind of like sitting there thinking or whatever, and just to reflect and be like, man, it's fascinating and incredible how Yahuah works. And, you know, like I remember when like I got to Yadi, and then like the kind of person I was then, the struggles you're facing, the things you're trying to overcome. And then you finally like overcome those things. And then
yeah,
you overcome those things. You're like, there's more to overcome. There's always things to overcome. And there's always growth. Right. And I feel like that's like um, I think that's like the key thing in like an individual's walk. It's like, you should. There's always. It's like the cliche. There's always room for improvement, but it's like
right,
true. It's like there's. when you plant yourself and you're like, you stake your claim more or less, and you're like, this is my faith, this is my belief. And in the beginning, it's like those smaller changes, right? Like
Yep.
first, you just realize who you are, like, oh, I'm an Israelite in this case, or you're just like, I'm not of the world, right? Like we're in the world, not of it, and you start to like then your life starts. You start to make changes in your life that reflect that. Hopefully, like Yahuah calls you, you enter the door through Yahusha, and like that's the beginning. And hopefully, you don't stay there.
Right. The goal is for it to evolve.
Right, and hopefully you keep evolving as time goes on. And to see where I was, like I got saved when I was like 22, so going on 6 years, if not already 6 years. I think in December, I think towards the end of this month, I might have already hit 6 years. But like just seeing the things I struggled with then, or and then you compare it to the things that I'm facing now,
Right.
right? And it's like, and at that time, you think it's like the most difficult thing. It's like, oh my
Right.
gosh, like for me at the time, I was in a unequally yoked relationship,
I
and I
remember
was
that.
I was living out of covenant with a woman, and I was a pothead. I didn't, I was flipping jobs. I just had like nothing. I had no direction whatsoever. Um, and then like a lot of those things, most if not all, have been overcome, and I learned my lessons, and like you gain wisdom through those experiences. And
One thing I
then,
realized, not to cut you off, but one thing I realized that is the excuses also change. Like
mhm,
we can look back and see, man, did I give that excuse?
yeah,
Man, it's so overcomable now.
yeah. And it's interesting because like, and then let's take your case, right? Like I remember when I met you, and um the person you were, and then see now it's like you're not Yoshi, you're not Enrique, you're
Yeah,
Yoshi, right? It went from Enrique to Yoshi, then now you're Pastor Yoshi.
yeah,
And it went from Enrique living in his mom's house to Yoshi living and like wherever you were in Brazil at that time, because you had moved to
yeah. I was in the
uh
south.
you were in a different place. And it's kind of like that, and I think we've talked about this before too. It's like that embodiment of like when the Hebrews left Egypt and they're wandering the
Hmm.
desert, and it's like, I imagine they're just like, just going everywhere, like circling, backtracking, going forward, and making they're just kind of like wandering aimlessly in a lot of ways. And eventually you get to this place where it's like, the promised land. And it's not like once you get to the promised land, like the things end. Cause like what do you see? Like
Yeah,
Joshua takes everybody, they cross the Jordan, and then it's not like they're just chilling and having parties every day. It's like, okay, now it's time to go to war. And like I brought you here, but now you gotta go, like, I don't know, like
we're gonna
all
have
out
to
war.
kick everybody out. We're gonna have to fight forever.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, so the battle doesn't end, the battle just changes. And it kind of changes in proportion to your growth. It's like, for example, for me at that time, the battle I was facing was leaving this relationship that wasn't productive. We weren't unequally yoked. And then all these like challenges that kind of were like external. Like, of course, there was like internal things that you have to overcome, but a lot of it was just like the external things. Like I had to get rid of this relationship. I had to move from this place. I had to start cutting these things off. And now it's really moved into like, now it's like, and not that there's not external things that have to be, worked on and improved, and things you have to realize like, oh, I still have to cut this off. But like it's starting to feel like it's more now internal.
Yes, like more little adjustments instead of
Right.
big, humongous changes. Because,
Right.
like, at least in my walk, what I saw is, and I'm not even like 10 years in, I'm five going on to six. I'm going to turn 6 years old in the faith in August 29th, 2026. This is the day, I'll never forget that date. But in my walk, I saw, as you said, in the beginning, you have very tiny changes, like keeping the Shabbat, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't keep the
Agreed.
Shabbat until the first 3 months because I was working.
Yeah.
But I was like constantly trying to keep the Shabbat and to leave that job. And I finally got the guts to do it. But once I did it, it's like, okay, I just don't eat pepperoni pizza anymore. It was a tiny change.
Yeah.
And then it went from that to moving. I moved in with the Colodros of Yahusha and the Colodro in the mountains. And we went there because I felt I was 22, 23, and I felt that I was becoming an amoeba in my mom's house because it was not no longer my father's house because my father passed away in the first year of my walk. So my battles were more like resistance battles. Like let's see if you break.
Right.
Those were my battles, like resistance. Let me see if you stick to it. If you are able enough to put these things aside and ignore them, and sometimes ignore your feelings and loneliness too. Not solitude because Yahuwah was always there. Now I can see it, looking in hindsight.
Right.
But like I have very little friends in my life, and the period that I had the most friends, like in terms of quantity and consistency, was in the time that I was saved. But they were not good references to me. They were not, as we were before being saved, pagans, with different twisted priorities and whatever. And I was advised to leave them, not because they were bad people necessarily, but because they were not in Yahuwah's will, and that could trip me and bring me back outside of Yahuwah's will, which would have been very easy to accomplish, by the way.
Right.
So I moved out of my mom's house. I left all my friends behind, and to me that was the first major change in my life because I didn't have any relationship before, so I didn't have that fight that you had. I didn't have to go through, and then I had to come to Campina with them. I was not married at that point, almost 3 years ago, and then I had to go back to my mom's house for some personal reasons, and I was advised to do that, and I did, and then I got married. So another gigantic change. At that point, I had already crossed Brazil like twice, by car and by plane, because trying to seek what would be the best position for me to develop and grow in Yahuwah's will. And this is why I said about excuses, because I could have given all the excuses, and now the person that I am now, none of them would make any sense to me. And sometimes I seem very um, unempathetic because I don't take excuses that well. It depends on the situation and depends on the person. But I've given a lot of excuses, and now today they just don't make any sense to me because Yahuwah proved Himself over and over and over and over in my life to the point of exhaustion. Like before giving an excuse, I just try. I just try to do it because if it is Yahuwah's will, He'll see me through it. And then going to now, I had another major change, which was like a moving out of the apartment, moving in here. But as you said, I feel like the changes are more and more inner rather than
Yeah.
external changes. Like, should I read more? Should I spend more time doing this instead of doing that? Should I cut back on this? Should I just never do this again? Should I, not drink that? Those very tiny changes, and we're not even 10 years in the walk. Imagine this conversation in 40 years from now.
Yeah.
That must be crazy.
Yeah. And then we're gonna be looking back and be like, bro, like, and it's always funny too because it's like whenever uh Yahusha's showing you like, hey, like it's time to cut this out. Like in the moment, it's like at least for me in a lot of ways, and I think it's like that for a lot of individuals. Maybe not for others, but at least for me, like it's like I don't want to say it seems like this challenging feat because oftentimes it's just stubbornness. Like it's not even that like the change or like um
The step itself.
the step itself is hard to do. It's just like you're stubborn. You don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That's for me. Like I just don't want to do it, and I'm like constantly like battling within myself to like I need to do this. I need to do this, and it's like I just don't feel like it. Like you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then it's like, and then often in the past where it's like it was I do want to do it, but like I feel like I can't. And I feel like now for in certain I'll try to think of like maybe a more specific example, but it's like there's things where it's like yeah I don't want to say that I don't want to do it. It's just that like the stubbornness of like I guess I don't want to do it.
I don't feel
Like
comfortable. I don't
yeah,
want.
I don't feel comfortable. Maybe that's what it is, or maybe it just as simply is like I just don't want to do it.
I
Um,
remember an example of you. We spoke about this in the testimony, so I'm not going to give all the whole Megillah about it. But I remember when you were told to go to Jacksonville, and you just like you stopped in the middle of the way in Tennessee, and I remember you telling me, "Bro, I cannot go. I physically can't. I have no money. My engine blew up. I
yeah,
know I don't have a job. I don't have a place to stay. I can't go." I remember that.
I
And
don't
back
remember
then,
that, but it's something I would definitely say.
it felt real. It felt like you had all the excuses in the
Mm-hmm.
world not to go. It felt like you
Yeah,
you actually couldn't go.
yeah,
But at the very same time, a few months after, you just said, "Okay, f this, I'm going. And
yeah.
if I die, is Yahuwah's fault." And out of a sudden, everything flourished, and you got a job, you got a place to stay, your car, got to the condition of not being blown up, and you out of a sudden could live.
Yeah,
And 2 years, no, 4 years that you've been there, 3 years, 4 years,
4 years, I think.
4 years
This is my
after
fourth
you're
year, I think, something like that.
3 years and 8 months after you're a married man, like you are an integral part of the congregation in terms of the technological things. Um, you have a whole family, and I have the same. I just didn't go through the same process, but you see, like this illustrates what you were talking about. Back then, the excuses made all the sense.
Right,
But when we look back at them today, they didn't. They were just like the first energic visceral reaction to
right.
being confronted and challenged.
Yeah,
And now I feel I can be challenged more easily.
yeah, yeah. Well, I definitely think like in that specific situation, right? It's like on the exterior, all those things seem like valid reasons. Like, okay, I'm being called to move to Jacksonville, and it's like okay, that means I have to physically get up and go to Jacksonville, and like there's logistical things that like I need. Like, yeah, I need money. Why? Because I got to put gas in my car so I can drive my car down there, or like I need a place to stay because like I need a place to stay. I need a job so I can sustain myself. And those are like on the surface, like yeah, those are valid reasons. But it's like either the scripture is true and it's not. So it's like seek
Yeah,
first the kingdom of heaven and everything will be added unto you. And it's like so on a superficial level, like yeah, I mean those are valid reasons. But looking back, like no, it's not because it's like if Yahuwah's calling you to be here, and this is what his calling is. It's like is it if he's calling you here? What do you think he's gonna not feed you?
yeah.
You think he's not gonna put a roof over your head? He's not gonna like so like now the lessons I learned then, it's like I don't want to say never like pridefully, but I'm pretty confident to say like I would never if he was calling me to do something, the excuse for sure would never be like I don't have the money or
Right.
what how am I where am I gonna stay? It's like if Yahuwah wants me to move to freaking Bangladesh, which hopefully he never does, because that's gonna be a weird thing to be there. But if he called me and it's like it's never gonna be like I just don't have the money. It's like I'm gonna just start going and like he'll figure out the rest.
Yeah.
And now it's just and now for me, I feel like it's stubbornness. Like it's just like because I don't have a doubt that like Yahuwah would provide or Yahuwah would do this. It's just that like I feel that internal. It's like that internal conflict of uh like I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like that internal conflict of like perhaps it's like the flesh, right? It's like I
I
believe it
see
was
it. I see it as the struggle of like, how do I know this is Yahuwah and not me?
yeah.
This is how I feel like, as you were as you were saying before, and it was making sense in my head. Like we had that conversation several times. Of man, I think I should do this, but how do I know this is Yahuwah saying? How do I know this is Yahuwah doing things and it's not our flesh doing? How do I gauge that?
Yeah. And I think it's like, and Paul spoke about this, and let me pull it up because I know it's in Romans, and it's basically where, and it may not fit perfectly, but I think it paints a pretty good picture of what I'm trying to say, and he's probably going to say it better than I can.
Paul was the guy.
He's that dude, bro.
He was that guy.
So I'll read this. It's chapter 7. We'll start in 14.
Can you pull it up?
Yeah, I'll share it. I forgot how to use this. Been on the OBS
You
vibes.
can click H, and it's gonna open the screen share.
That's one thing. I've never been a shortcut guy,
Right.
and it probably would make life easier if I just followed shortcuts. Like if it's not Control C and Control P, like I don't really know too much about it. You know what I mean? Which is weird because I've always been around computers. Anyways, more of the story. So this is Romans 7 14, starting at 14, but chapter 7. So Paul's speaking here, and he says, "For we know that the Torah is full of the Ruach, but I am of the flesh, sold under sin. For I do not know what is going on. For what I propose to do in obeying Torah, that I do not do. But what I hate in the Olam Chazeh, in the world, that I wind up doing."
This is my favorite verse. He's basically saying, "Dude, I have no idea what."
Right.
I
Exactly.
imagine him like going crazy. I don't know.
Right. 16. If then I do that which I do not want to do, I consent to the Torah that it is Tov. Now then, it is no more I that do sinful deeds, but sin that dwells in my flesh. Okay, and he continues on here to basically explain that, and maybe you can correct the insight issue, but basically what he's trying to, moving forward here, he's basically saying like it's not him, the spirit of him, the inner man that is doing these things. It's the flesh. So it's not him necessarily that's sinning, because Yahusha cleanses. He has created a new creature within us, but it is the flesh, because there's that division, right? There's the inner
Right.
man and the outer man. The outer man being the flesh, that which is carnal, of dust nature, which we're always going to be contending with until we escape this flesh. And once you receive the mind of Messiah, once you receive the new heart, once you receive circumcision of the heart, and you were reborn. And I think this is it's like it's almost in a way like self-justifying, and I don't mean that in like a negative connotation, but it's almost like a way of Paul comforting himself, in a sense. Like he's saying, like, by the mere fact that I'm doing things I know I shouldn't do, but I
You
hate that
acknowledge
I'm doing that, right, is the proof that it isn't really you doing it, it's you struggling against the flesh, which means Paul isn't living in a lifestyle of sin, he's struggling with certain things. And there's a
Right.
difference, because if you recall, right, before you're saved, like I'll take me for example, you sin every day and you don't even think of it as sin. It's
Yeah.
just like, this is good, this is normal, this is chill, no big deal. But
I
once you
think
are,
before you continue, just scroll up because I believe this chapter is worthy to read the whole thing. To illustrate afterwards, after you finish, I would like to illustrate a little bit.
yeah. So the point I was trying to make, right, and that's how I feel like what is going on, especially for me a lot, is verse 15. And I feel like I'm in that place where I'm struggling with that, where he says, "For I do not know what is going on, for what I propose to do in obeying Torah, that I do not do, but what I hate in the Olam Hazeh, that I wind up doing." And it's not like I'm out here fornicating, selling cocaine, and going to strip clubs, but it's just things that I know I can do to improve, things that I know that I can do to better myself and become uh, and set myself apart more, or allow Yahusha to set me apart more. And I know I should do these things, but I don't do them. And it's not because I'm not capable of doing them. It's not like even like I have a good excuse. It's just that,
Right.
like, for some reason or other, I don't end up doing them. And that's what I feel like I'm struggling with now. With in the past, the things that I struggled with, it wasn't that the excuses were valid, is that they made more sense. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's like a way, it's like you can draw a line between the two dots and being like, that makes sense. Now it's like it doesn't really make sense. It's like, you know what I mean?
It feels like why you just don't do it.
Right.
This is what I'm struggling with as well in terms of reading, in terms of praying.
No.
Especially this move is a perfect example. Like I moved, a lot of stuff happening. A few days I didn't read. A lot of days I didn't pray because I forgot because
Yeah.
of the amount of things that were happening. But like, let's move on to verse 1. Back again, please. So, uh, he's basically speaking, and you can read the whole book of Romans if you want. In chapter 2, he gives the context. Shaliach Shaul is talking to the believers in Rome, but most specifically to the overseers of the believers in the Roman congregation. And they were Jewish, Pharisaic Jewish people recently converted. Basically, he taught them the scriptures and he left to do something else into another country or to another city. And these dudes almost immediately forgot what they were doing and what they were taught before Shaul even arrived at his destination. So he's talking to those, chapter 7, verse 1. Know you not, my brothers, for I speak to them that know the Torah. I'm speaking to you guys because you were from the house of Judah and you were supposed to be teachers by this point. How the Torah has dominion over a man as long as he lives. For the woman who has a husband is bound by the Torah to her husband so long as he lives. But if the husband is dead, she's loosed from the Torah of her husband. So, context, Yahuah had to die so his wife that he married at Sinai in Exodus chapter 20 could be free to marry again because she was in whoredom. So, in order for her not to die, he carried her blame at Calvary. I'm treating Israel as the wife, as the whore that prostituted against and whored with all the other gods that we see in all the books of all the prophets. And then he's saying, do you guys don't know that you don't have any more condemnation and you're not supposed to be treating the Torah as something that justifies you because you are married to a different husband now because your previous husband died so you could remarry him. Verse 3. So then, if while her husband lives, she shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband is dead, she is free from the Torah of her husband, so that she is not an adulteress, though she gets married to men. This is not to say that Israel is free from the Torah in the sense that they don't need to do anything anymore. Because a lot of the stuff in the Torah that Yahuah gave himself, he said, those are forever. And Yahuah is the same, yesterday, today, and forever.
Mm-hmm.
4. So you see, my Israelite brothers, you also have become dead to the Torah of your husband by the body of Messiah, that you should be married to another, even to him who is raised from the dead, that we should bring forth fruit to Yahuah. So they were still holding on to that idea. These guys in Rome were still holding on to that idea that Torah justified them. They were still holding on to the beggarly elements that melted during the siege of Jerusalem, according to 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 8 and 9. They were still holding on to going to the temple and praying before that cursed altar made with stones, made with men's hands and stuff like that, thinking that they could have done something better or something like that, that just didn't make any sense. And they kept on doing that. They kept on pursuing that stuff. And it just, they were not understanding that once Messiah died for them, they didn't need that anymore.
Right.
So
Which is important because you have to understand this in the context of they're coming from the perspective it's like the light bulb hadn't gone off for them yet.
yeah,
Because the fact is, if they hold on to that identity or that system, then there's no need for Messiah.
right.
And and that and not to get too deep into the 70 AD return, but the point being, like, if that sacrificial system, if those foundational elements weren't done away with and destroyed, it doesn't, like, you can't have two things inhabiting the same space.
Indeed.
And so if the temple will stay there, those sacrifices are still there, the Pharisaical order is still there, they're taking the place of who the true husband is, which is Yahusha. So what does Yahusha do in 70 AD? He destroys the temple, he destroys that whole Mosaic system to get rid of it so that the only thing left standing is Yahusha, who is the rock, right? Who is, the waves came, the flood came, in this case, the fire, the destruction came, and Yahusha is the only thing left standing, which forces you to have to cling to him if you want to receive the eternal life.
Indeed.
And they're not they're still haven't fully left that. They're still contending with that because it's like, hold on. So like we're still kind of doing these pharisaical practices and like it's the works that save us, the Torah that's going to keep us alive. It's like, no. That's been done away with. Not the statutes, not the boundaries, not the orders, not the things that Yahushua didn't do away with, which is obviously keeping the Sabbath, the Moedim, the feasts, the laws in terms of like eating clean. Obviously, the 10 Commandments, just because Yahusha came and did it. And if you look at it from the Christian perspective, he came away, he did away, they nailed it to the cross. Okay, so then we can just rob, we can murder, we can pillage because it's been nailed. Unless you want to be one of those guys that's a cherry picker.
Yeah.
But the importance of the context here is that because of their background, they're struggling with fully doing away and dispensing they're struggling with getting rid of the bathwater instead of they're holding on to both. And you
Right.
can't do that. You can't serve you can't serve two masters at the same time. You have
Right.
to pick one. And obviously in this case, the right choice is Yahusha.
You cannot eat Popeyes and Taco Bell the same night because you're gonna die. So you need to choose one to serve.
100%.
So, verse 5, for when we were in the flesh, the passions of sins through the Torah did work in our members to bring forth fruit to death. But now we are delivered from the Torah of our husband, in the sense that the Torah of our husband doesn't have the power to condemn us anymore because the sacrifice has been done. um, Being dead to what we were held by, that we should serve in newness of ruach, in newness of spirit, and not in the oldness of the letter. So this is the thing: we don't do the letter of the Torah in order to be accepted by it, because Yahuah has already accepted us in the beloved by the sacrifice of Himself. So 7, what shall we say then? Is the Torah sinful or sin-causing instrument? Let it not be. No, I had not known about sin except by the Torah. For I had not known lust except the Torah had said, "You shall not covet."
And I
But
think, sorry,
yeah,
I think it's so important because what is Paul doing? He's bringing things into balance, and he's making, because there's probably going to be people who are like, oh, so that means the Torah is just like, we can read it for some context and that'll give us some history, but that's about it. Paul's like, no, no, no. Like, let's not go overboard here and not say we don't need the Torah at all. But just like you just said, he came to fulfill it in its intended fullness, to reveal it in its intended fullness. And what's that fullness? Because think about it, guys. If we lived in the Mosaic age, there really isn't a whole lot of room for grace there. Because if you get caught in adultery or fornication, it's not like you're forgiven, brother.
scourges.
It, the rocks are coming. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
gonna throw you out the camp, and then everyone's gonna get around you and stone you to death. And there's no time to like, oh no, but because of Yahusha's sacrifice, that sacrifice is perpetual. It's a mark, and it's like a stamp, and it's like a fixed point in time that covers time. So
right.
it's like, because of his sacrifice, it's the same reason the Pharisees, when they brought the woman caught in adultery to him, what did they want to do? They want to stone her, because by the Mosaic law, the idea is, and obviously we know that you need the man and the woman, all these other things, but what does Yahusha say to them? Putting that aside for the moment, they want to stone her. Why? Because the Torah says if you're caught in adultery, like, you need to be stoned. But what did Yahusha say? Like, he who is without sin cast the first stone. What's the point being? Yeah, the Torah does say that she doesn't need to die. But guess what? Every single one of you have been
Y'all
breaking the
next.
Shabbat. You know what I mean? So if she has to die, all of you have to die. But guess what? Because of me being Yahusha, not me, but you know what I mean, Yahusha, we don't we have the time, we have the grace of time to get our act together.
Right. In other words, what Shalom Shaul is bringing into perspective, and again, context is key. He's talking to Jewish legalists, basically people that were raised in that system and couldn't fathom the idea of that system ceasing to exist, the way they did it, the way to get to Yahuwah's intention, the way to go to the temple, the way that if I don't do a sacrifice of a lamb in this altar today, my wife is going to explode. They didn't understand that that was not necessary anymore. And this is precisely what we and Nehemiah were talking about, the excuses before. Before, our bodies didn't understand the idea of doing these changes. And now, because we understand, our flesh contends even more strongly with our bodies because our ruach knows what to do, but the flesh is always in the way. And to those people that say, "No, I've conquered the flesh, so why are you not with Yahusha?"
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the end goal. If you've conquered your flesh today, why do you need Him for? You
Mm-hmm.
don't need Him. You don't need Him anymore. You're good. You're all set. I think you are a super Christian. I guess,
And I
but
mean, as far as I know, there's only two people who got to escape death. Because not even Yahusha got to escape death, and he was perfect from the start.
yeah,
And that's Enoch and Eliyahu.
indeed.
So two people out of the billions that have ever existed, and all of a sudden you're the guy that's conquered the flesh. Well, where's your fiery chariots taking you to heaven? Because you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't see that. And flesh and blood doesn't inherit the kingdom of Yahuwah. So probably Hanok had a heart attack and he just didn't feel it because he was translated. The difference is He went straight to the Shamayim before Yahusha had raised from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't go through Sheol process. He just went straight up because Yahuah was pleased with him. That's it. That's about it.
Yep.
So everybody in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 that were caught up, they were harpaso. They were snatched. Their ruachim were snatched from the flesh. How do you call this? Death. The physical death. But Yahusha had already gone through his sacrifice by this point. So they went straight up. The thing is, they were the first ones. This is why this is different. So going on, still on this context, verse 7, what shall we say then? Is the Torah sinful or sin-causing instrument? Let it not be. Hell no. I had not known about sin except by the Torah. So the Torah shows us what not to do.
Right.
For I had not known lust except the Torah had said, you shall not covet. But sin, by means of the commandment, provoked in me all manner of desire. For without the Torah, sin was dead. So in other words, once we get to know that sin exists, our flesh goes nuts trying to break every single commandment there is to break, because that's the flesh's natural inclination. This is why we spoke in the beginning. It was hard as hell for Nehemiah to leave a bad relationship behind. It was hard as hell for me to leave my former friends behind because the flesh was comfortable amongst sin. And once it discovered it was a bad thing, it wanted every piece of that thing. It wanted every piece of that work. This is how it happened. Verse 8, but sin, by means of the commandment, provoked in me all manner of desire. For without the Torah, sin was dead. For I was alive without the full Torah once. But when the commandments came, sin revived and I died, because sin wanted to take hold of me. 10, and the commandments, the mitzvot, which were ordained to bring life, I found to bring death, because I couldn't keep any of them.
Right.
Let's put it to our perspective today. How many commandments are there for the Levitical priesthood? 20% of the Torah. How many commandments are there for women to do? Another 15%. How many commandments had to do with the physical land of Jerusalem? Some 35%. So how much are we in the mathematics? 75% less that we cannot fulfill anymore? I'm in Brazil. I have no way to afford a Jerusalem ticket, and I don't want to go there because of war and stuff. I don't want to be shot in the head right now. So sin revived, and I died. In the commandments, verse 10, which were ordained to bring life, I found to bring death because of man's weak flesh. For sin, taking opportunity by the commandments, seduced me, and by it killed me. Therefore, the Torah is kadosh, is set apart, and the commandments are set apart and just and tov. There is nothing wrong with the Torah, but there is something wrong with the recipients thereof. Us, the weak man's flesh cannot do what's there to do. And how do I know this? After Shlomo, how many years did it take for the next king to keep Sukkot? That wasn't the Josiah revival, close to Babylon days. This was more than 1,000 years of history without the Torah being fulfilled, because the man couldn't do it. Even Shlomo himself, he built 2 golden calves, one in the north in Dan, and one in the south in Beit Al, to worship the golden calf. So even the kings couldn't serve the Torah, couldn't do the Torah because they were weak. Their flesh was weak.
Right. And that's why Yahusha says he came to bring life and life more abundant, because there is a freeing element of Yahusha, right? That's why he is the breaker of chains. By Messiah coming and providing himself as a sacrifice, he frees us from the Torah, from the condemnation of the Torah. Right. Because without Yahusha, we're condemned. That's the whole reason that everybody prior to Yahusha's sacrifice, they didn't get to go straight to heaven because they were still condemned. They needed that. And guess what? Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they all sacrificed goats. They all sacrificed 6 turtle doves and 3 pigeons. Do you understand what I'm saying? They all did these sacrifices, but it still wasn't enough. And they weren't justified and they weren't redeemed yet until Yahushua. That's why they looked forward to it, because they knew the things that they were doing at that time wasn't enough anyways.
Indeed.
But it was a placeholder. So they looked forward to it because they're like, boy, I can't wait till Yahushua comes like he promised, because we need him. You know what I mean? We need him just as much as the people who come after Yahusha's resurrection need him.
Yep. Amen. 13. So the Torah is kadosh, set apart, just, and tov. But then, was that which is tov made into death for me? Let it not be. But sin, that it might appear to be sin, worked death in me by that which is tov, so that sin by the commandments might become exceedingly sinful. So this verse is not complicated at all. What he is saying here is that for Batman to be a hero, he needs the Joker to do messed up situations. For Superman to be justifiable, he needs General Zod to invade Earth and do a bunch of messed up situations. You know, for sin to be sin and be something to avoid, it needs to lead to death. The Torah needs to exist. It needs to blame you and say, if you do this, you're messing up. So then that which is good made into death for me?
Right.
No, it wasn't. Because the Torah, again, is just, is set apart, is good. But it needs to blame you in order for you to see the clear difference between death and life, between sin and righteousness.
Right.
This is the role of the Torah.
There needs to be rules to the game. If a game doesn't have rules, it's not a game. And I don't mean game in like a frivolous sense, but I mean parameters in this thing that we call life. Because if there's no rules to a game, it's not a game, it's chaos.
Yes.
There's no up, down, left, or right. So what does the Torah do? It provides direction.
Right.
By mere nature of it providing, by the mere nature of the Torah providing direction, and it tells you this is where you should go, by definition, the opposite of that is where you shouldn't go.
Right.
So the Torah is a flashlight. It sheds light and exposes your condemnation. Because by definition, it's giving you the standard. Do not kill. You killed somebody. So by definition, you are condemned. That's what the Torah does. But what does Yahusha come? To reveal its intended fullness, to bring balance, to give you an option, a path, a way to overcome those things, because you can't do it on your own.
Right. And here it comes the context that Nehemiah was bringing up before. 14, for we know that the Torah is full of the Spirit. The Torah was given by the finger of Yahuah. But I am of the flesh, sold under sin. For I do not know what's going on. For what I purpose to do in obeying Torah, that I do not. But what I hate in the world, that I wind up doing. But the key thing is, he knows what to hate in the world. And he knows what he purposes in doing in the Torah. But what is the difference? When he talks about me, he talks about the Ruach within the robot. He's not talking about the flesh. He's not talking about the carnal things. He's talking about the spiritual things. My Ruach knows what to do, but I keep contending against my flesh in order not to do them. 15, for I do not know what's going on. For what I purpose to do in obeying Torah, that I do not. Do. But what I hate in the world, that I wind up doing. If then I do that which is not what I want to do, I consent to the Torah that it is good. So this is what Messiah was saying. Carry your own execution stake and follow me. You need to deny yourself. That's the whole purpose of this life. And this is why we need to go through this holding tank before arriving at Messiah's front door. Because we need to understand the goal. We need to understand this process of denying ourselves in order to be worthy to be in front of him. 17. Now, then it is no more I that do sinful deeds, but sin that dwells in my flesh. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwells no good thing. For the choice and desire to do the right thing is present with me. But how to perform that which is good evades me. So here we have a clear differentiation between the flesh and the Ruach. And bringing it back to the context we were talking about before, now it feels that these choices are more personal. They are more inner choices rather than outward, where I'm going to live. What am I supposed to eat? Now these things are like clockwork. They are, okay, I understand. I need to live close to my community. Wherever the community goes,
Right.
I need to go. These are just like, they are normal. They became normal to us. But the things are now like, I need to read more. Why am I not reading more? Why is it so hard for me to pray 3 times a day? It shouldn't be like that. But the flesh is always bringing things into perspective wrongfully, and we constantly give in to it, and we constantly, fail. But the key is we never acquiesce to failure. We never acquiesce to the flesh. At the end of the day, we have the last laugh because the Ruach needs to command the flesh, not the other way around. And with maturity, that becomes more easier. But maturity needs time to flourish. It's like a fruit that has been planted. So, 19. For the good that I should do, I do not. But the evil that I desire not, that I wind up doing. Now, if I do what I should not do, it is no more I that do, but sin that dwells in me. I find it an interesting Torah that when I would do good by the Torah, evil is still present with me. And this is what I was saying before. The point where we've conquered the flesh is when we escape it because we are so set apart that we don't belong in it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
This is the place where we have the outburst, the breaking of the veil. This is when we go to be with Yahusha in the New Jerusalem, not made with hands, where flesh and blood cannot go, and that doesn't come by observation. So we need to evade the flesh in order to be there. And this is when we conquer the flesh. But the whole life process is to conquer the flesh. This
Right.
is what we strive for while we are living.
Right. And that makes sense because if you think about it in the context of like the success isn't escaping the flesh and being to be absent from the body to be present with the Father. If you succeed, because what is the flesh trying to do? Keep you with the flesh.
Right.
When the flesh goes to the grave, it wants to keep you in the grave with it. And when you succeed, your flesh goes into the grave and you escape. You don't go with it. The double death and dying you shall die, the curse that befell Adam isn't fulfilled because of Messiah's promise. So that I think Yoshi explained it perfectly. Like that is overcoming the flesh. You're not going to overcome it in this life. You're going to overcome it by leaving this life.
Indeed.
Or this thing that we call life, because true eternal life is with Yahuah. So success is escaping the flesh, and you evade that second death. The first death is inevitable. The first death is an escape. What you're doing is you're not escaping the first death. You're escaping the second death, which is remaining with the flesh in the grave.
Right. And if and this kills that reality of super saints, because if Shaliach Shaul was having problems with this, if the apostle Paul that saw Yahusha and changed from a murderer to a savior of those people, if he was going through that, how can we compare ourselves to him that haven't seen the master? We only read about him.
Mm-hmm.
So 21, I find that an interesting Torah that when I do good things by the Torah, evil is still present with me. For I delight in the Torah of Yahuah after the inward man. So my Ruach delights in the things of the Spirit. But I see another Torah in my members, warring against the Torah of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the Torah of sin, which is in my members. Bringing it back to the context of the chapter. What is he saying? With Messiah, after his sacrifice, we don't need the Torah to be justified. We already are. But that does not mean that our flesh is not going to keep warring against the Ruach in order to keep doing messed up stuff. This is why we need the Torah now, people. We don't need the Torah to be saved or to be accepted. We already have been, but the Torah is still the manual to go through this life in order to go through that progressive sanctification process that we talk about all the time here. This is not going to escape us, because if it does, we don't need Yahuah for nothing anymore. The Torah is to keep us in the path, is to keep us in the way, is to teach us in our offspring how to live this part so we are worthy enough to escape the flesh and be with the Father. Because there are only two ways of leaving this body. Either be absent from the body to be present with Yahuah, or second death. Right. And we don't need to go through the second death, technically. We can choose to do it, but we don't need to anymore.
Torah is the map and the standard that it's what we look to check our own progress. It's like, where are we and what do I still need to do? What more can I do? How much more can I what more do I have left to do to bring me closer to Yahuah in this life? What more can I implement? What am I missing? What am I struggling with? And if you don't have a Torah, how do you know what that there is even something to struggle with? You don't.
Right. 24, O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of death?
And that exactly states what Yoshi and I were saying, 3 verses ago, and the idea being that Paul is saying this: "Who shall deliver me from the body of death?" He wants to escape the flesh, and that's what Yoshi was just saying earlier. Like liberation, you're not going to be liberated in this flesh; you're going to be liberated out of this flesh, because the flesh isn't going to inherit the kingdom. It's your spirit, that which is Yahuah is preserving through his son Yahusha. And that's what Paul is recognizing and acknowledging in this verse. Who is going to save me from the body of death? Well, it's Yahusha. Yahusha is going to fill in the gap for you, because you're not going to be perfect,
Yep.
or else you don't need Yahusha. So Yahusha is going to fill in that gap. But you have to reach in the marathon of your salvation, in the marathon of your discipleship, of your walk. Over the time, you're progressing, getting closer and closing, shrinking that gap more and more and more,
And
until
more.
Yahushua, and then it's gonna get to a point where Yahushua's like, "All right, I'll fill in the rest of it. Time for you to come home. You got it. I'm done."
Indeed. 25. 24. Who's gonna save me from all this? Oh, do be to Yahuah. Thanksgiving be to Yahuah through Yahusha HaMashiach, our Savior. So then, with the mind, I myself serve the Torah of Yahuah, but with the flesh, the Torah of sin. Does that mean that with one hand praises Yahuah, while with the other he snorts cocaine all the time? No. What he's saying is, with one hand in my mind, I serve Yahuah, doing everything that is in my power to keep the Torah of Yahuah, not because I needed to be saved, but to serve it out of love. But on the other hand, my flesh is constantly after the Torah of sin, is constantly after the autopilot to hell. And this is the struggle of the fight against the Ruach. But the good news is, Romans 8, verse 1, in nothing is there now any condemnation to those who are in Mashiach Yahusha, who do not walk according to the flesh, but who walk according to the Ruach of Yahuah. And that's a big if, because you need to be mature enough to be walking after the Ruach. And how does that happen? Denying yourself. I'll give you a perfect example. Nehemiah was living with a woman. He was not married to her. He was having intercourse with her. He was doing a bunch of stuff. Yahuah convicted him that that was not right. Now he had two choices: to walk in the Ruach and do the right thing, or to walk in the flesh, knowing he was wrong and keep in sin. What does Yaakov says in his book? For those that know how to do good and do not, to them is counted sin. And that applies. And a perfect example with me coming to Campina Grande here in the northeast of Brazil. I was in the south of Brazil, and I'm Gaúcho. I am from the coldest parts of the country, and I like the cold. And I am here in this oven, but it doesn't matter my choice, because I saw Yahuah doing something here, building a congregation. And I said to myself and to my wife, how can I move us away from what Yahuah is doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's counterproductive. We need to go even closer to what Yahuah is trying to do, regardless of the situation. And me and her came to Campina with 2 backpacks. Now we are living in a house with 5 bedrooms. That can only happen with Yahuah. But the thing is, we denied our will. We tried our best to be in his will. I didn't know if it was the right thing to do. But one thing I knew, going to Yahuah's will is not going to be wrong. It may not be as glamorous as it could be, but it's not going to be wrong. I'm not going to be wrong in Yahuah's will. I may suffer more, but hey, this life is but a short period. As we were saying before, and Nehemiah brought this before, that our decisions, when he drives to work and has time to reflect, when I wake up and sit in my bed before having my coffee, I look at the stuff around me. And one thing of us humans that we can see for a fact is the material side of things. What we can compare material things that we have and that we hadn't before and stuff like that. One thing we can understand is we are not immature enough to care about those decisions. I'm sure Sholech went with the congregation to, I don't know, Montana. It's a terrible city to live in, but if Yahuah called the congregation to be there, I'm sure Nehemiah wouldn't have a problem going there now. The same problem that 3 years ago he had, the same difficulty. Man, I just don't want to do this shit. He wouldn't have that problem now because his Ruach is accustomed to it. But the challenges are more in the inner man now because we understand and acknowledge that it exists. Things that was not that clear years from now, years ago.
Yeah. It's fascinating. And then, 5 years we'll be talking about something different, you
Yeah,
know? And but
I hope so.
I think that's the point. Yeah, and it's like Paul. Take Paul for example. Initially, his problem was, I don't know, maybe persecuting believers, and he probably didn't see any wrong in that. And then he grew. Yahushua revealed himself to him. He changed. And now, what is the struggle that Paul's facing? Well, he's not facing the struggle of persecuting believers and going about around the country hunting down Yahusha's disciples. Now he's struggling with the things of the inner man, not the external elements. But now it goes from the pure from exterminating the things that are contaminating you on the exterior to the things that are contaminating you on the interior. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think it's one of those things that I think those are the more challenging ones. Like it's easy to not eat pork. It's easy to keep the Shabbat, relatively speaking, right? Because everybody struggles
Yeah.
with different things. But those are like the elementary principles, right? Like keep the Shabbat, don't steal, don't try to sleep with your neighbor's wife, don't go murdering people. Like those are things that are easier to do than like the self discipleship of like making sure you're studying your scriptures, you're rightfully dividing the word, you're not allowing people to influence you and bring stumbling blocks into your life. Those are things that are trickier to do and they probably just take more time to
Yep.
flush out and iron out.
And they also take not only time but practice,
Mm-hmm.
exercise. You need you basically need to tell yourself, hey, get your stuff together. You're not that child anymore. Grow up. That hurts.
Yeah.
Because
And it's
like,
not fun
yeah,
in the sense of like it it's like not to say that discipleship or living for Yahusha isn't fun, but it's like when you live your whole life a certain way and that's what fun has always been to you, it takes time to like rewire your brain to the appropriate settings. It's like people who are addicted to sugar. You know what I mean? They got to eat that Snickers bar 3 times a day. And then when you're like, maybe I shouldn't be eating so much sugar, I'm going to get diabetes. You know what I mean? And then once cutting back on the sugar is challenging, but once you get there, then you go to try to eat that Snickers, then it's too sweet. You're like, oh, I don't want that. Let me go eat an apple or something.
with the
Love that.
bariatric surgery, I went through that. Because before that, I was a Volkswagen bus. I was gigantic, and I
Vintage.
used I used to eat like three McDonald's Big Macs at once. It was easy work, light work for me. And then I had the bariatric surgery. I lost, I don't know, 80 pounds or something like that. I don't know in pounds. I really hope you guys change that stuff one day because you're the only country that does that.
Never that, bro. We're too stubborn.
You need to, man, because it's hard as hell to convert. But I lost 80 pounds, 90 pounds, something like that. I lost the whole person. That's the point. Um, and I went to do the tattoo. I have a tattoo in my head. So I went to do the tattoo and I was 19. No, 20. I was older anyway. I was an adult. And I dropped off the bus after I did it in a local Bob's Burgers. I don't know if you guys have it there. Bob's
We
Burgers.
got the show Bob's Burgers, a classic.
Um, yeah, they have a franchise here. And I ordered like a chicken burger, chicken sandwich, and I just tasted the plastic in it. Like it was horrible. I was like, did I eat that like for a living before?
Mm-hmm.
How did I endure that much? I was suffering through the meal. And this is what Efemi was saying, like it takes time for that to happen. And it takes a whole bunch of exercising your mind. If you don't exercise your faith, and this is why it's so important to move to a congregation. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot rush that process, or you can if you're that crazy like we were. But like, it's important to know where you belong in a congregation because if you don't live what you're studying, you're just getting head knowledge, but you're not living it. You're not doing the changes. You're not forcing yourself to adapt, and that's hard as hell.
Yeah.
For instance, I'm gonna have a class, Monday night class starting on December the 22nd. It's not gonna be nice for the people to adapt because it's another meeting, it's another night, it's another thing to do that probably they didn't need. But the more we try to do these type of things, the easier it gets to do these changes.
Yeah, it becomes routine, and like I don't know. I think routine gets a bad connotation because it sounds boring. Like, oh, I was, but it's like it's crucial. And then like when those things become routine, then it becomes a part of your identity. And it's like when it becomes a part of your identity, then it's something you need. And when you don't have it, it feels off. For example, a couple of Shabbats ago, was it? Yeah, 2 Shabbats ago. You know, the whole thing happened, and we didn't meet in person. And I don't even remember the last time I missed Shabbat in person. It'd been a while. And then I was telling Vanessa, I was telling my wife, we stayed home to watch it, and it just felt weird. Like my whole Saturday felt off. I
Right.
was like, what, like, because I'm so used to every Shabbat getting up and going to the service, going to the congregation, being there in person, having dinner together, that it felt weird not to go. Like I didn't like it. I was like, this just feels. And it's funny because there's days where I wake up in the morning and like I don't want to leave, and I don't dread going, but just like I'm like, I want to stay in my bed. I want to stay home.
You want to chill
Eh,
out.
Yeah, and it's like the day I stay home, then I'm like, man, I wish you would have got the opportunity to meet today, and it just feels
Yeah,
weird. And it's the same way. It's like you start going to the gym. You know, at first you hate it. You're like, oh man, like it's just it feels like a chore. But then when you're in the rhythm, you're on the horse, you have the momentum going, and you're feeling the benefits of it. Then that those you miss a day or two, then you're like, you feel like crap. You feel gross. You're like, oh, I need to get back in the gym or something like that. So
indeed.
it's like the same principle. So I guess with that, whatever, take of that what you will.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
I think at this point we are just beating Roger again,
oh, poor
beating the dead
Roger.
horse.
Dude's donezo. I don't know what we're gonna title this. Probably.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't really want to. As Nehemiah suggested before we started recording this stuff, we're just gonna go natural because some gems are spoken
yeah,
before the rec button is pressed.
yeah. We start yapping together and catching
It's
up because
nice.
Yoshi's busy doing everything. Pastor Yoshi's busy doing everything in the congregation, and obviously everything. Everybody has their own life. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
has his wife. He has congregation there. I have my wife. So it's not like we get to hang out every single day
Yeah.
and play League of Legends all day. No, like people got a life. I gotta work. She's gotta work. So it's like our time where we get to also catch up. So usually before we record, we take sometimes we're taking like an hour and a half just talking, yapping about whatever. And then I'm always like, dude, we should have recorded that because inevitably we start talking about something, on a deeper level. It's like, oh, I'm struggling with this, or what do you think about this, or what's your thoughts about that? And then, I'm like, we should have just recorded that. That would have been an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
So
What is
everybody got something
what
out of
is
it.
your thoughts before we sign off? I don't want to start a whole nother discussion, but what are your thoughts about the rise of Muslim governors and Muslim political people across the world? What is your thoughts about it?
I don't know. It's interesting. I think I'm not gonna be like pretend like I'm a well read or well versed on geopolitics. Um, but I think it makes sense why it's happening. I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing, but what I'm saying is I think you can draw a logical conclusion as to why it's happening, especially now. Islam, from what I understand or what I perceive of it, is a religion that is very beneficial to men. It has these very hard boundaries, and it's a very patriarchal religion. Um, and it kind of places men at the top. Which, listen, the Torah does well.
Yeah.
The Torah practices a patriarchal order. It's not like Scripture is very clear from the very start in Genesis. The woman should not have authority over a man. But I think a lot of biblical understanding has been lost through Christianity having a not very strong interpretation of the scriptures, in my opinion. And I don't even think it's opinion. I think it's fact. To do that
Right.
what you will. You can disagree if you're no disrespect, man. Like
I
I
don't
still,
really care to
yeah. I mean, I
disagree.
still love my Christian brothers. But it's just like a fact of the matter. Like I'm sorry, the Christian perspective is not a good perspective. And I think that's why Islam is able to gain such a strong footing in a lot of these places, is because when you have a Muslim come and say to you, like, oh, you say you're monotheistic, but you believe in three equal parts, like the
Yeah.
Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and like, but I thought you only believe in one God, and
And
but
also,
there's three equal.
Christianity makes a lot of excuses for a lot of stuff.
Right. And Christianity is it gives this weak view. It comes off as weak because it seems to be very passive. Because they do away with a lot of the Torah, it does away with a lot of the order. And it allows for chaos to seep in. And I think the reason Islam is taking a foothold in a lot of, especially in Europe, there's starting to be like there's little pockets here in the States, at least, in like certain cities and states where there's a lot of a large Muslim population. But I think why it's taking such control in Europe is because I think, especially in our generation, there's been this idea that like being a man is bad
Yeah,
inherently.
being masculine is toxic in
Being
itself.
masculine is toxic, and that's like a if you're ever like in the YouTube world or in the social media landscape, Twitter and everything, it's kind of like a topic that's just kind of like beat over the head. Like if you're talking about Roger getting beat up, like when it
So,
comes to masculinity and like people, defending it, like it's like people say it's like it's bad to be man. Like everybody says that now is kind of mainstream and it's kind of like over talked about in a lot of regards, in my opinion. But there's still like a very valid point, and I think men naturally look for strength. They look for power, and I think Islam offers that to a lot of men, and they go to join that. And then when you have a religion such as Christianity that has a lot of holes in its doctrine, Islam can take advantage of that and poke even more holes and be like, look, we have the Quran. Like, that's just more proof that your scriptures have been altered, which is true. Like, they
yeah,
take these truths and then, but the problem is they don't correct it. They just take it and run with it in a completely different direction.
yeah. Another
And
thing I saw with Islam is that they are very strong in bringing women back to their spot in society.
right.
Like there was this porn star. She went mainstream because of that. She was converted to Islam. I don't know her name. Is a is an Asian woman that she was converted to Islam, and then she was giving her testimony. She started wearing the burqa and whatever, and she said that Islam showed me my value, that I didn't need to seek for men's attention. So they're right on that side, but the problem is they use half truths, and they this religion is so enticing because they are unapologetically them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you disagree. This is what the book says, and we are going to do that. The problem with Christianity is that they have the correct book, but they just don't want to live it.
Yeah. And it's very like Christianity in a, and not everywhere, because there's a lot of Christian churches and circles that are, it's really when you get more into like the fundamental, more like older school Christian, denominations. You see it definitely in like Pentecostalism, the fundamentalists. Like they definitely do reserve a lot more of that like patriarchal order. Men have a place, women have a place. There is an order to things, and I think they do a better job of, even though they still have a lot of things that are wrong, they still do a decent job of like even keeping a lot of the Torah. You know what I mean? Maybe not the Shabbat and maybe not the feast, but a lot of fundamental concepts they still keep. It's the same reason that people like Andrew Tate, like they pick up in fame and notorieties, because there's this like vacuum of no strong men,
Yeah,
because they've become very passive and allowed for chaos to ensue. It's like that old saying goes, right? Like hard times produce strong men produce good times, good times produce weak men produce hard times, and it's like that cycle and truth. And right now we're in a time, I think the generations before, because things were so good, it created a lot of weak men, right? Like when you lived like 1,000 years ago, there was no room for weakness. It's like you either go get your food or you die,
in your family too.
and your family too. And it's like there's no room for weakness. But because of air conditioning and a refrigeration and washing machines that do a lot of the work for us, society's become very soft and very comfortable. And there's a lot of benefits to that. Like I'm not saying I don't want to live in a world with no AC, but there is a drawback to that, and it creates a lot of complacency and comfort, and it produces weakness. To be straightforward, and that creates hard times. So like you see now in our, and I think we're in that like
Transition period.
transition period where a lot of people of our generation are like kind of figuring it out and they're starting to, and it's like I don't want to be a weak man. Like I want to figure this out and like
Yeah, I'm seeing like those debates. You know that those type of videos that is like a white room and one person against 20 people
oh yeah
debates.
yeah yeah
So here in Brazil they have that too. So like one pastor against 20 OnlyFans models, or one Christian woman against 20 feminists or something like that. Just I'm not saying this is profitable. To me, debates are useless because they are just word debates that Shaul, Apostle Paul, warned Timothy, if I'm not mistaken, about. He said, "Flee from useless word battles." I don't like debates. I never did. To me, they are male parts swinging contests, and
mm-hmm.
I just don't understand debates. Maybe I'm blatantly wrong because I'm young and unlearned, but I just don't understand them. But the sheer factor that these conversations are being had, it feels like we are in this transition period, going back to this generation of how do you say it? Strong men to bring good times, and then our great grandchildren are going to be weak again, and then it's going to happen again.
Yeah
But yeah, one of the reasons for this podcast is that we also felt this vacuum for the correct patterns, the scriptures being again in the forefront of the decisions of the rearing of children, of living your lives the way Yahusha and Yahuah designed everything to happen. And I'm getting sick and tired of these debates, honestly, but they are a good sign that,
yeah
humanity is trying to go back to, common sense, that a man is a man because he is born like that.
yeah yeah and I agree in the most part. I think debates more often than not are pretty pointless, especially now and like in the era. And it's ironic because we're kind of like doing that, what I'm about to say, which is like everybody has a mic and then everybody can give an opinion. And then you see a lot of places like you have like that Fresh and Fit podcast. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like all over Twitter, X, and stuff like that. And it's basically like it'll be like a dude. It's these two guys. It's like this format, right? You have two guys, and they'll have like 8 women. Then they'll
Yeah,
have like one dude there, and then it's kind of like that Jubilee format, which is like one atheist versus 20 Christian. It's like kind of like that, but not. It's more
yeah,
conversational. And you just have like one guy sitting there and like calling all the women a bunch of whores, and then the women are like, I'm free to do what I want, and it's just like pointless. But I think there is a place for debates, but it's like a specific type where it's like, yeah, let's have a conversation and like flush out these ideas and let's see who has the better perspective. But I think those are not as common as because we live in the age of like clicks and likes, and like people want to see like these bombastic personalities. They want to like clip farm, they want to aura farm, they want to drop memes, and like that's what gets the retweets and the reposts, and that's what's like funny, and the edge lords. That's all they want. You know what I mean?
right.
So, but I agree. I think most debates are just like pointless, and they're not. It's just like too ego context. Like I want to prove you wrong, and I want the whole world to see it, so they can say I'm right, and they can like praise me for being smarter and better than you. And like no one is very. You don't frequently find like a good faith debate where it's like I have these ideas, you have these ideas. I think you're wrong, you think I'm wrong. Let's talk about it. Let's see who's wrong, and let's see who has the better idea.
This
Um,
is my problem with debates. This who's wrong approach. And I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. But to me, that doesn't make any sense. To me, it makes more sense just to put out a teaching, and whoever disagrees, they can live with it, or they can just get out of my page. I think like that, and again, I may be wrong because society was created way before I was born, and greater men than I will ever be debated, and this is why things changed. But I don't understand debates. And there are great people that do it. They feel it's important and they will keep doing despite what I'm trying to say. But I'll never do
yeah,
it. Unless Yahoo
I,
tells me to expressly, I'll never do it.
yeah, I wouldn't either. It's too. It's just. I personally would never do it. I think you have to. I think it's just like a way of disseminating information. Some people like to read a book. Some people like to watch a podcast. Some people like to read an internet article. I think it just depends how you like to receive information. I think what's cool about certain debates is I think debates are good if you're like on the fence about a subject, and because like even the word says like test all things and prove all things, and it's like some people seemingly have like a good counter argument, and it's like how do I get over that hump? And then it's good to hear the person who actually has an answer to that be like, okay, this guy has convinced me now because I get it now. I get it. Like
But
it
would
makes
it be
sense.
better just to listen to a teaching or a lecture format instead of like trying to prove him wrong? Just listen.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but I think it's like I think what it is like certain things like you can bring out a teaching and lay it out, but then like in a debate like but sometimes the questions won't be answered, and it's like and it'll be really good points. That it's like how do I, because I think debates get like this certain connotation that it's like confrontational, it's like in bad faith, and it's like an argument. But I think like if it's done right, it's more of like there's certain debates that are stupid, like is mozzarella cheese better than cheddar cheese? Well, mozzarella cheese is whole milk, and cheddar cheese, has a certain protein that makes it yellow. It's like that's stupid, but I think in the context of like I don't know how do I describe it? Like the 70 AD teaching, right? This whole understanding of like there's people who for hundreds of years, thousands of years have thought that Yahushua is still going to come back and is going to be soon. And they believe they have this proper perspective. And you can make a teaching kind of dismantling those claims, but I think people receive it better. Certain types of people, I guess what I'm trying to say is certain types of people might just receive the information better in that way for
Right.
one reason or another. It's like how some people will get information better from a documentary where they can see the images, they can see video, and some people may just get the information better reading a book. It's just how you receive the information.
Right.
Like there's different ways of teaching, and there's lecturing, there's hands-on learning. It's just how you, I think, receive information.
You
But
might be right. You might be right. I might be wrong. I can live with that.
let's debate about it. I think, but I will say this: I think with the whole Muslim thing, I think it's just I think it's the product of like a vacuum, that this lack of masculinity and a lack of answers, because
Yeah.
Christianity does have a lot of holes and gaps, and then you have this religion that can seemingly fill in those gaps, but it's like this is where you need voices like Shaliak Moshe, like Shaliak Peter, like
Like ours too.
yeah, like ours that will say like no, like the Trinity is BS, but it doesn't mean that the Bible is not false. It's just you've been misled, not intentionally, because people were taught wrong by people who were taught wrong by people who were taught wrong, and it's like no, like the Trinity is BS. There's no three equal parts. There is there is a trinity in the sense of like there's three manifestations, but they're not equal. The Father is the all powerful. Yahusha is the lesser Yahuah. He is subservient to the Father. He is below the Father, and the Ruach is the gift and the comforter to mankind. They're not equal in stature and power, but they are the same thing. They're aspects of a they're parts of a whole.
Yep.
And it's like, but if you go around saying that they're equal and that like the Ruach is the set apart spirit is equal to the Son is equal to the Father, when Yahusha clearly said the opposite of that. He says that the Son is always subservient to the Father, and that the one
I
who
do
is
all
sent,
things that please my Father.
right, and the one who is sent is not greater than him who sent him. Like yeah, that contradicts. But then if the voice of those in the Nazarene movement is very niche and small, and Islam is a religion with like billions of people, and you have people like Muhammad Hijab and others who have these big platforms and they can like poke holes, and then you have people like Shaliak who is teaching a restored version, proper understandings, but the viewership isn't that of someone who has millions of subscribers. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If you got Shaliak in front of an audience of a million people, you know what I mean? There's those teachings are gonna be obviously spread out more, and they'll be more in the zeitgeist and more in the mainstream. But they're unfortunately they're not. And yeah, willing maybe
I
through this
think
podcast things change.
in up to this point, Charlie Kirk was the guy that got the closest to do like a big revival of some sort.
Yeah, which is it a coincidence to kill them? I'm not gonna get into the conspiracy theories about all that, but I never watched too much of Charlie's content. I'm
Me
not gonna
neither.
lie.
I just saw that he was very influential, and he
Yeah,
was starting to touch on the Shabbat subject.
right. I think that was very interesting, but. not to go too deep into that, but I think it's the fact that his voice was silenced and cut off in a time where I think he did a lot of good for society. Who knows where he would have been in 10, 15 years?
Yeah,
It's interesting, and it's just a shame that in America, where it's supposed to be a country where you're on paper supposed to be able to say what you want. You have the freedom to say what you want. Some dude
but
disagrees with you and shoots you in the neck. It's
that's the
shameless.
problem. That's the problem. Like, I understand the Second Amendment and whatever, and you're gonna hate me for that, but I don't care. I love you anyway. That's a problem with having the Second Amendment. Everybody and their mama has a gun.
Yeah,
So technically, you can speak if you have a bulletproof vest.
yeah,
Then you can speak. But
yeah,
it's kind of weird to me to try and have freedom of speech when your neighbor has a 50 cal sniper rifle.
yeah, yeah. Well, guns in America, it's just one of those things where it's like, well, there's so many guns, and you have so many people who aren't gonna give them up. It's just something that like it's just something. And I mean, look, I'm a Second Amendment guy. I believe I don't believe in it, but like I definitely think it's important. And I'm not like someone who would want to ban guns here. But it's just the point where it's like they're not going anywhere,
Yeah.
and it's like it's like living next to the beach. Sometimes the hurricane comes and wipes the house out, and like that's a part of it.
I would love to
Fortunately,
have a firearm. No, I don't need like a AK-47. I don't need an assault rifle. I'm not at odds with the government. I'm not a mafia guy. But like a 15 shooter, handgun, or a shotgun to protect my home, nice. I heard a former mob underboss of the Gambino family, Sammy, I think is the Gambino. Please don't come after me if I'm saying the wrong family. Please don't kill me. I don't know. I'm a Brazilian, but a former underboss of one of these New York families, New Jersey families, and he was saying that even if they take away the guns, I will always have a gun on me. I don't need the problem with you gun people. He was saying, is that you don't need an assault rifle that shoots 200 rounds a minute. You don't need that. If you want to hunt, get one of those bolt action rifles that you shoot like boom, boom. That's it. That's what you need. The problem is that people are not willing just to have what they need. They want to go crazy and shoot schools and shoot synagogues and shoot mosques and whatever. So I would love to have guns, but they took it away, so we cannot make revolutions and whatever. But I think too much is also a problem if you go too crazy.
everything should be in balance, right?
Everything should be cool.
But all right, guys. Well, I guess we'll cap it there. Listen, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Throw us a little comment. Give us your thoughts on uh, what we read. What you enjoyed. If you have any questions, if you have any ideas, something you'd like us to talk about, share it with a friend. Share it with a brother, a sister, a cousin. Your Aunt Judy, whoever. And yeah. Until next time, we appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Shalom, shalom, and we'll see you episode
On the next one.
27.
Yep.
Shalom.
Shalom, y'all.